Hey, what's up, Hoosier fans? Welcome to another edition of Indiana Football Live as IU gets set to hit the road this week to take on the Fighting Illini of Illinois in Champaign at 11 a.m. Central Time kick, noon Eastern. So looking forward to this matchup here. Looking forward to getting on the road tonight. And then looking forward to joining my buddy Don Fisher up in the booth on the IU radio broadcast. So I'm Rhett Lewis. Great to be back here with you. Appreciate everybody joining us on the Indiana Football X account. And if you're with us on the IU Athletics YouTube page, a reminder that you can jump into the conversation and submit comments there on that YouTube page. And we'll get to some of those here if we got time before the end of this show. So certainly appreciate everybody being aboard here. Big matchup for IU coming off that huge win at home at the Rock over Wisconsin this past week. And you could feel things building in this direction, even in the loss against Penn State, playing so well in that game. And then building towards a win over Wisconsin. And now with 3 games left to play, the goal of the postseason is still out there. But obviously, the only thing that matters this week is getting a dub over Illinois. And one player who's going to play a big part in that result for IU is our special guest on this edition of Indiana Football Lives. We welcome redshirt freshman quarterback Brendan Sorsby to the program. Brendan, man, thank you so much for being with us. We certainly appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time here this week. Man, it was so much fun to watch you compete, really these last couple of weeks, but certainly last week and getting the win, man. It had to feel pretty good to get that first one under your belt as a starter.
Oh, yeah. It was a lot of fun out there. Obviously, we stalled a little bit in the second half as an offense.
Yep.
Defense bailed us out, and we got a big win. Got to go get another one this week in Illinois.
Does that tell you something about how connected this team is, though? And obviously you guys faced, your fair share of negativity over the course, in the middle of the season. But, the fact that, offense comes out, like gangbusters, right? Scores in that first possession, builds the lead. And then, when things aren't going the way you want in the second half offensively, defense is there to bail you out. Does that say something about how this team kind of has each other's backs?
Oh, yeah. I always say it. I love every guy on this team. I feel like we have a really special group, and I feel like we play for each other. So, the defense helping us out there was huge. And, I trust those guys. I trust our guys on offense to get it going. And we end up getting it going on that last drive. And, Freeman went out there and made the kick.
Awesome.
And we walked away with the dub. But, yeah, like you said, playing complimentary football.
Yeah.
You just gotta go out there and do it again this week.
So how much fun then was practice this week coming off a win, right? I mean, look,
Yeah.
I know you guys get after and you bring the energy out there practice every day, no matter what the result is on the previous Saturday. But man, to get out there and to build on success with a dub in hand, like how would you describe the vibe that you guys have had out there these last couple of days?
Oh, yeah, like you said, even after a loss, the energy was still high all season, but it's just that much better whenever you get a dub. And all the guys are just excited to get back in there and get to work. And it's a fun feeling to win. And, we got a chance to do it 3 more times and then one more in the postseason, like you said. So, we gotta go execute on Saturday.
That's it. And so when you mentioned, the second half kind of, slumping a little bit there, just based on the productivity that you guys had in the first half as an offense, what do you look to kind of try to get rid of that kind of lull in the production here as you go forward this season and this Saturday?
Just, stay true to who we are. Not trying to do anything too special, just sticking, Coach Carey always says, just be boring. Whenever we're boring, we're pretty good. And, we're, in that third quarter and a little bit in the fourth quarter, we try to do a little too much maybe. And we got away from what we do. And we just got to stay boring and be boring and go out there and have fun being boring.
It's fun when you're being boring and you win, man. There's nothing boring about it because there's plenty of excitement to be had. That's for sure. And man, it was so much fun watching you and watching you compete this last week for sure. Let's get into that a little bit here. I feel like watching you play, man. You've got such like a playmaker mentality to the way that you play. Where does that kind of come from? And I know you're willing to throw it from anywhere to anybody. You've got that talent in you. But how do you then balance being a playmaker versus playing within the scheme?
At the end of the day, it's all about taking care of the football. Go back to Penn State, don't make that turnover. Maybe don't throw that pick. Maybe the game's a little bit different. But, playing backyard football is fun. And whenever you can get outside of the pocket and make some plays and, maybe go run over somebody, maybe get hit a little hard
Yeah.
sometimes. It's fun, you know. So I enjoy it. I enjoy making plays and trusting my guys, and maybe throwing some questionable balls here and there and letting them go make me look good. So you know, um, just backyard football. It's fun, man.
Do you feel that when you're out there, like you're just kind of, can you separate, the fact that there's, thousands of people in
Mhm.
the stands and with everything on the line, and can you boil it down to the fact that you just love playing football, and
Yeah,
that's
at
kind
the
of
end
where
of the
some of that
day,
playmaker stuff comes from?
yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a game, man.
Yeah.
Whenever you can go out there and you know surrender the outcome, we always talk about. I'm a firm believer in God, and He already knows what happens. He already knows the outcome. So whenever you can just go out there and play free, it's a lot better feeling whenever whatever you do out there, it's just a game, and obviously you're going out there to win, and you're
Yeah.
going out there to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And, obviously everybody on the team the same, but just surrendering the outcome and just going out there and have fun.
Well, it's clear that you play with that kind of mentality, but where do you challenge yourself to grow each and every week, each and every day? What are some of those things that you look for?
Um, Staying aggressive while being smart. I think this past game against Wisconsin, maybe I was a little bit too conservative in some situations, but if I can stay aggressive while being smart at the same time, I feel like we can go wherever we want to as an offense, and we can keep some of those drives that we stalled on in the third and fourth quarter. We can keep those drives going.
So, how would you then describe like where you've come as a starting quarterback from when we saw you against Ohio State, right? Week 1,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
then now you've got 3 starts, 3 more starts under your belt, getting ready for your 4th start consecutively. Like how would you describe that part of your growth?
Just a lot more comfortable out there. I feel like the game's starting to slow down more and more each and every single week. You know, Whenever you can just go out there and just get the more reps you get with the guys, the more comfortable you're going to be. And I feel like those game reps have helped a lot. Obviously Ohio State, little, inconsistent at times, but
Yeah.
these past 3 weeks, I felt like I've done a lot better at settling in, and just got to continue to do a good job of doing that.
And I think we've seen it. We've seen that trend line going for you. So look, I mentioned it when we brought you on. You're a young player, right? You're young in this program. You're young, as a quarterback. But with being a starting quarterback comes the innate responsibility of leadership. How do you kind of
Yeah.
approach that part of the game?
Obviously, try to build a relationship with every single guy on the roster, and I feel like I do a decent job of doing that. Not always talking about football in the locker room.
That's right.
Making it more of a joke relationship with the guys. Sometimes it's nice to get away from the game every now and then, and talk about life and other things like that. And I feel like whenever the guys can really get to know me as a guy more so than just a football player, it's a special relationship.
Those connections are huge, and we had DeKeys Carter on, last week after he had, the big game against Penn State, the big touchdown to open the
Oh yeah.
scoring, and he talked about how connected this team is, and yeah, and so when you look at the playmakers that you have around you, right, at the wide receiver position, at tight end, and at running back, what gets you excited about that group of guys and trying to get the ball in their hands?
Yeah, like I always say, man, they make it easy on me. You see the Donovan's catch, like
Yeah,
out of the hand. I thought I threw that one a lot too high. So he went up and made me look really good. So having those guys out there, throw the slant to EJ on that third down. He makes
yeah.
makes a couple guys miss and goes and gets the first down. Our tight ends have been phenomenal this year blocking. They're putting their bodies on the line every play, just like the offensive line. Running backs doing a great job carrying it, and then uh, like I said, our inside guys too are making some plays. So makes it really easy on me whenever those group of guys are doing their thing.
So, I think Coach Allen has talked about it a lot, and when he was recruiting you, when he brought you in as a player in the recruiting class last year, and talked about how you're still pretty young in your
Yeah,
journey as a quarterback, right? So,
yeah.
how would you describe like when you first knew that this is the way that you wanted to progress your football career, that you could be a guy at quarterback to win football games on the Power Five level at a Big Ten institution? Like, when did you feel like that was going to be the path for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've pretty much played quarterback my whole life, just wasn't very good at it. So, I was always so small. And junior
Yeah.
and senior year, I finally started to grow. And I like having the ball in my hands. I like to make plays, and you know,
Yeah.
um, I like the opportunity to go win games for the team, and I don't know, I just fell in love with the game and just being able to make plays and contributing to the win.
Yeah, no question about it. And
Yeah.
look, for a win this week is going to be certainly a challenge, as it is every week in the Big Ten. What does Illinois look like to you?
They're really good on defense. They're really physical. Um, I just got to keep trusting my guys. I think we'll be able to. I think we'll be able to make some plays on them, move the ball on them, put some points up, and I think our defense is going to, handle business on Saturday, and
Yeah.
stop them and get the ball back to us. And special teams is going to do their thing as well. And I think we just got to go take care of business and put points up.
In particular, as you talk about Illinois' defense, Johnny Newton is one of those guys
Yeah.
that gets talked about a lot,
Oh yeah.
right? Each and every
Yeah.
week, and he's a guy that'll be thought of very highly in NFL circles when and if he makes
Yeah.
that decision, and will be one of those high draft picks. I'm sure by now you've seen, plenty times that that sack he had early in the second half, that closing
Oh yeah.
speed he had on the quarterback against Minnesota after beating the right tackle. For a
Yeah.
300-pound dude. So obviously you're aware of that, but that's also, there's a trust factor too, right? With the guys in front of you in the offensive line to take care of business so that you don't have to worry about that as much. You can just focus on distributing the football.
Oh yeah, he's a special player. Really, really twitchy, like you said.
Yeah.
Can affect games, and he has. He's impacted a lot of games that they've played in. The guys up front are going to take care of it, and they're going to take care of me. I trust them, and like I said, like you said, I got to keep my eyes downfield and make plays whenever the pocket sometimes does collapse. I mean, they're going to get pressure. They're a really good team, so we just got to make plays whenever we have to.
Yeah, no question. All right, so last one here, and we'll get you out of here on this one. You've had Coach Carey in your corner now these last couple of weeks as the offensive coordinator and a play caller. What's a thing or two that you love about the way that he coaches the game?
He trusts me a lot. He lets me play free. We joke. I'll be on the sideline. I'm like, man, Coach Carey, you're calling me an awful lot. What's up, dude? I'll just mess around with him. I feel like there's a trust thing, and he trusts me. I trust him. I trust that he's going to put me in the right situations. And like he always says, if I ever make a bad play call, just make me look good. And you ever make a bad throw, it's on both of us. And I'm like, well, that's nice of you, Coach Carey, but not really. So I trust him a lot. I love having him as my coach, and excited for Saturday.
Yeah, no question. Well, a lot of people chiming in the comments in your corner, including Scott says, "Let's go get him, Sorsby." The hashtag LEO, ready to rock and roll this week against Illinois, man. So a lot of people in your corner and in this team's corner as you try to still keep those goals alive, getting to the postseason. Starts this week against Illinois. Brendan, thanks so much for giving us a few minutes of your time here. All the best, man. Look forward to seeing you in Champaign.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right, Brendan Sorsby with us here on this edition of Indiana Football Live. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Illinois here. Obviously, we mentioned, we'll start with the defense since we were talking about that with Brendan a little bit. They get some good players. Obviously, they lost a lot from where they were last year as the nation's number one defense. The defensive coordinator, Ryan Walters, was one of the best defensive minds in football, left to become the head coach at Purdue, who we'll see in a couple of weeks. And he had a ton of NFL talent on that team. 3 NFL players in the first or in the secondary rather were drafted last year. Quan Martin, Sidney Brown, and then Devin Witherspoon was taken with the 6th overall pick by the Seattle Seahawks. So obviously there were some really good players there. Remember, this is a game Indiana won to start the season last year. And so I think, again, this offense will be well positioned to deal with what Illinois has this year, replacing some of those NFL guys. What they do still have up front are 2 NFL caliber defensive linemen. We talked a lot about Johnny Newton. I mean, he's going to be, one of those guys in consideration for, All-American status. He's on all those award watch lists, and rightly so. He's an incredible athlete for the size and frame that he brings to the table at 6'2", nearly 300 pounds. And I was mentioning the play against Minnesota. I mean, he was suspended for the first half of the game. So he comes out, I think Illinois loses the fumble. And so their defense is put on the field in a tough situation. They come out and he comes up with a huge play, gets around the right tackle in about a split second. And then as the quarterback is moving off to the left side, he's on the right side of the offensive line, beats the right tackle and closes on Ethan Kaliakmanis, the quarterback at Minnesota. I mean, you just don't see that type of closing speed. And Brett Bielema and the staff talked about that a lot to the media this week in Champaign. That closing speed for a player that big is rare. And he got the sack of Callie McManus, and that was a big play for Illinois' defense there. So it took him all of about 1 minute and 30 seconds of game time to make an impact once he was able to come back from that targeting suspension in the first half. And a big player. And then, Keith Randolph is another guy, right up in there. We saw him last year, 88, real physical presence. I mean, like Johnny Newton, can be a game wrecker. They've got some dudes up front, no question about it. So that'll be a real challenge for an Indiana offensive line this week that's played pretty dang well this for the most part of this season. So excited to see how they rise to that challenge, particularly in protecting Brendan Sorsby and then in creating lanes in the run game. So that's where they're at defensively. They still got some good players in the secondary. I don't know that they rise to the caliber that they had a year ago. And, that shouldn't be a surprise considering where some of those guys were drafted. Then when you get to the offensive side of the ball, this is where things get kind of interesting. Luke Altmaier transferred to Illinois from Ole Miss this past year. Really talented quarterback, both using his legs and, obviously with his arm. He's had some inconsistencies throughout the season, but was playing pretty well and then went out of the game in the last couple of minutes against Minnesota. And so they're down. They need a comeback, and they lose their starting quarterback. Well, in comes John Paddock, and he's got a great history with his family and playing football at Illinois. He comes in, completes 3 passes. They go 85 yards, including an explosive play touchdown, a deep shot to Isaiah Williams at the end for the go-ahead score and essentially the game-winning score. So you get your backup quarterback come in there in a big spot. You put the game on his shoulders, and he delivers. So I think no matter who plays, Indiana certainly have a challenge in defending what Illinois wants to do from the quarterback spot and overall in that offensive unit. The other part of that thing is, Luke Altmaier. So, listening to what Brett Bielema said, in case you haven't been following it, wasn't able to practice Tuesday, Wednesday, but seems to be trending in a direction where he will be available for Illinois on Saturday. And I thought it was interesting. Coach Bielema said, hey, look, 9 games in, even if he's not cleared until Friday or Saturday morning, would still feel comfortable in starting him. So I think you could expect to see Luke Altmaier for the Illinois Fighting Illini at quarterback in some capacity this week against IU. The other thing, they've been hit hard by injury in the running game and in the running back room, rather. Josh McCray was supposed to be counted on to be one of their big-time guys this year. Is lost for the season a few weeks ago. And they were so thin at running back that they had to turn to the true freshman, Caden Fagan, 6'3", 250 pounds. Get to him in just a second. But they also had to convert a couple of walk-on defensive backs to running back to provide depth, and then had to move a guy who they'd kind of recruited and played running back in high school, but started on went to the defensive side of the ball for Illinois in spring ball, and then was playing some secondary, and then moved to linebacker in fall camp. They had to move him to running back in the last couple of weeks to try to help again. And he was going to be the backup running back to Caden Fagan this last week against Minnesota. Ended up getting on the field for, I think, 1 snap, but didn't ultimately have a carry. They trusted Caden Fagan to be on the field for 70 of 73 snaps at running back. And if you watch IU and you know how often we rotate running backs from, Jalen Lucas to Josh Henderson to Trent Howland and Christian Turner, to be on the field for 70 snaps, especially 250 pounds, is pretty incredible. So Indiana will certainly have their hands full in trying to slow down that run game. Still a big piece of the puzzle for Illinois' offensive attack, even without the 1,600-yard rusher from a year ago in Chase Brown, who's now playing in the NFL for the Cincinnati Bengals. So they're definitely going to try to run the football. And then when they throw it, they got a special player in Isaiah Williams. We saw him in the slot a lot last year, number 1. Really good player, obviously a game breaker, home run hitter, touchdown from anywhere on the field type of player. He's got nearly 60 catches already this season through 9 games. And so controlling the run game and limiting the big plays from number 1, Isaiah Williams, I think will be a huge key, obviously, for Indiana's defense. Keeping the turnover theme going. Hopefully you could build on that first fumble recovery of the season last week, try to get a few more of those this week, and maybe force Luke Altmaier into some decisions and just some throws that he doesn't want to have to make. So need Aaron Casey to be that Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week again, bring that same type of mentality. It was so much fun watching him with those 2 sacks, the 4 TFLs, the 9 tackles this last week. Such a big piece of the effort each and every week for Indiana at the linebacker spot. And then, as Brendan mentioned, got to take care of the football on offense. Take care of the football in the mistakes. When the mistakes go away for Indiana, wins happen. If not for the couple of mistakes, Brendan talked about the one that he wanted to have back against Penn State, might be talking about a 2-game win streak right now. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but the mistakes were gone for the most part against Wisconsin. The self-inflicted mistakes, as Coach Allen calls them, the crimes against the team, were mitigated and limited in such a big-time fashion this past week, kept Indiana in that game against Wisconsin and able to get that win this last week. So, and Scott chiming in again in the comments section. Again, if you've got comments, please go ahead and leave them for us on the IU Athletics webpage. Look, and ask, is Ace a first-round talent? I don't know that that's the case right now, but I'm not going to put anything past him. I think he's playing like the best linebacker in this conference, which, again, is saying something, because I can tell you right now that NFL evaluators feel very, very strongly about the player that Tommy Eichenberg is at Ohio State. And I thought Ace played better on that field against Ohio State week 1 than Eichenberg did, but maybe I'm a little biased, but we'll have to go back and look at the whole body of the tape. But what Ace is doing is he's putting himself in a position to get out there and to be noticed, and for evaluators to take notice. And then they can go back and watch his entire body of work here these last 2 years, which has been pretty dang impressive. You go back and watch the way he played after not practicing or walking hardly at all against Michigan State last year. That'll be something that NFL evaluators talk about. I think he's really athletic. He's really instinctive, and he's only getting better. So I think there's some really bright things ahead for Ace, certainly at the next level. And he's kind of been the latest to kind of carry the torch, right? You think about, you can go back even beyond Tigray Scales, but just for recency, Tigray handing it to Micah McFadden, who's playing really good football right now for the New York Giants. Then handing that baton to Cam Jones last year, who was incredible before he got hurt, and now playing some real good football for the Kansas City Chiefs. Cam then hands the baton to Aaron Casey. And so it's been really fun to watch that tradition of linebackers here and how well they've played in this system with Tom Allen and with Chad Wilt, now with Matt Guerrieri, as well as kind of that defensive brain trust. So it's there's no question a lot is asked of IU's linebackers, but I think Ace is proving he is always up to the task. We're going to need him in a big way. And he might need to bring a couple of his friends too. 6'3", 250 pounds as a running back. You better get to the line of scrimmage and get Caden Fagan down before he gets his legs moving, because that is a big man going downhill in the if not. So, here, Jacob Mooney chiming in with a question here. What quarterback does Sorsby remind you of that plays in the NFL currently? That's a pretty good one, Jacob. And, I think anytime you see a quarterback or you see a quarterback make plays off schedule, you see a quarterback try to throw and make plays, in the pass game from, and throw the ball from different arm slots and, off schedule and off platform. Everyone wants to talk about Patrick Mahomes. And I don't think that he's a one-of-one type of guy. But what Sorsby has is kind of that gunslinger playmaker mentality, honestly, that I see that Josh Allen has. Now, he's not quite as big as Josh Allen, who's like 6'5", 250, but Brendan's 6'3", 230 pounds, a big physical player himself, but he's got so much room to grow. And that's kind of where I see the similarities with Allen, who was lightly recruited out of high school, ended up going to Wyoming, wasn't a super accurate passer for the majority of his collegiate career, played really well his last year, was a really good player in the draft evaluation process. Obviously has a monster arm. I don't know if Sorsby's right there yet in terms of that, but I think the path, towards where they are in their quarterback journey is actually kind of similar. Sorsby wasn't, recruited a ton, didn't have a ton of FBS and Power 5 offers, coming out of high school in Texas, but Indiana obviously saw the potential, and we're starting to see that now. So I think that he's got some congruencies to what Josh Allen has done. So appreciate the question, Jacob. And then Brad is asking, does Illinois bring a lot of pressure or just dominate with their front four? Well, I think what they do is they've got a lot of uniqueness to the way that they attack defensively. They can bring pressure, certainly, and they can do it from a lot of different areas, especially when you play with the 3-down linemen. And, you want to bring those 2 edge players, from the second level up to the line of scrimmage. They can do that and give you a 5-man front look. And so you're always kind of wondering where the pressure is coming from. So that's where the preparation is key. But they also, Brad, have the luxury of just turning Johnny Newton loose and turning, Keith Randolph loose and expecting them to generate pressure. And, while I was talking about, Newton getting pressure off the edge against Minnesota and getting that sack of Ethan Kaliakmanis, the other piece of it is I think sometimes pressure from the interior can really fluster a quarterback, maybe even more so, because there's really nowhere to escape, right? And so at least when what's coming around the edge, and if you got your offensive line providing a stout pocket in front of you, you can step up in the pocket and get away from that edge rush. But man, when the pocket is crumbling from the middle out, it makes it really tough to kind of find a pathway to keep a play alive. So I think, Zach Carpenter, Mike Kadick, Matt Bedford, Max Longman, whoever is in there, in that mix on the interior, they're going to have their hands full trying to provide a stable pocket for Brendan Sorsby to step up and throw the football to what we have is what I believe are some real emerging playmakers. You've seen it now with Donovan McCulley on multiple occasions. You've seen DeKeys Carter's capability, but EJ Williams, I think we're just scratching the surface of what he can do for IU from the wide receiver spot. It couldn't come at a better time with Cam Camper, unfortunately, now lost for the season. So really excited about those guys, excited about this game. And want to remind you a few things that you can catch the game. Obviously, it's at 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern. If you got the varsity app from Learfield, you'll be able to catch Don and I's call on the IU Radio Network. Obviously, all of our IU Radio Network stations available to pick up the game on the radio. On TV, it's going to be on Big Ten Network. Also can catch the radio call, Don Fisher and I, on SiriusXM if you got it. That'll be on channel 386. Or if you have your SiriusXM app, you can just search Indiana football in that search function. You'll be able to find us. So a lot of ways to consume what we hope is a big IU win as you kind of continue down this stretch here. A lot of possibilities left for this team. Starts this week against Illinois. Thanks so much for being with us here on another edition of Indiana Football Live. Thanks so much for the comments. Appreciate all you guys, Scott, Brad, Jacob, all you guys who have contributed here to the broadcast. We appreciate it. Thanks again to Brendan Sorsby for joining us. I want to remind you again that we are going to be with you on Monday for another episode of Indiana Under the Hood with Indiana football, presented by your Central Indiana Ford dealers, where we'll talk with a member of the IU coaching staff about what we hope, again, is a big-time win for IU. That'll come your way 7 o'clock Eastern time on Monday. And tell your friends if they missed this content, it'll be available for them on IUHoosiers.com. It'll be available on demand on the IU Athletics YouTube page or also on the Indiana Football X account. So thanks again for being with us. I'm Rhett Lewis. Go Hoosiers.